How's it going, Thrivers? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. In this video, I'm going to be covering the topic of brain retraining and answering what are we actually trying to do when we're brain retraining? Like, what is the effect we're going for? Because for the longest time, I was so confused on what brain retraining was. And I'm not saying that's the only thing that's going to get you better, but let's actually dive even deeper. What is the meaning of brain retraining? What is it, right? It's neuroplasticity. Now, what is neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity is essentially, in a nutshell, your brain's ability to change. And what we're trying to do, if you're dealing with something like CFS, long COVID, fibromyalgia, any kind of hypersensitive nervous system health issues that the doctors can't explain, that none of the treatments are working on, that you're left on your own to try to figure out, I would highly suggest trying some form of neuroplasticity, which is exactly what we teach on this channel. It's a big portion of it, right? Because what we want to do is create this neuroplastic change in your brain to go from the surviving fight or flight, just getting by, very symptomatic state, very sensitive. We want to transform your brain from this state to a thrival state, a state where you can actually go on and live your life. You can work again, you can walk around, you can exercise, you can be a part of society without having to worry about flaring up or going through life feeling like you're walking on eggshells. And so in this video, I'm going to break down what we're actually trying to do when we're brain retraining. Because for the longest time, I tried a lot of things that didn't work. I tried a lot of things that worked only a little bit. But it wasn't until I fully understood what we were actually trying to do where the results started to really compound on themselves, and everything I was doing in terms of recovery actually made sense. Because a lot of times I get it, we're so desperate trying to fix this thing, it's almost like throwing darts in the dark, right? You're just hoping it hits something, you're hoping it hits a bullseye and you find a cure, but there are some things that you can actually do in order to get to thriving health. But more importantly, it helps to really understand why you're doing these things. Like, what's the change you're actually trying to create? And so let me draw some stuff on the board here to help you visualize what I'm talking about here, okay? So first of all, I'll give you a 60-second refresher, right? If you haven't seen this video yet, then definitely go watch it up here, talking about the stress threshold, right? But basically, your brain used to be, let's say this is your brain, it used to be normal, okay? It used to function normally. It felt safe. It felt like it could tolerate things. It was very adaptable and resilient, right? And over time, that normal brain, or at least normal functioning brain, changed to a survival brain, okay? And a survival brain is what causes a lot of these symptoms, right? Because essentially, your brain, your nervous system, has been pushed to a point that it cannot tolerate any more stimulation. It starts to put limiters on the body. So in terms of the symptoms, right? In terms of the symptoms, you want to start looking at them as limiters that your brain is placing on your nervous system, that your nervous system is placing on your body, right? So symptoms are basically limiters. So when you are in a survival state, your brain is in a survival state, it's placing a ton of limiters on your brain. It's always on edge. It is always ready to fight. It is also ready to get into flight mode and flee the scene, try to run away from the danger. So a lot of what's going on in your brain, if you think about it, like actually think about when you flare up, you start to mentally or emotionally sprint away from these symptoms. You don't want anything to do with them. The moment you start feeling the heart rate increase, you start feeling the fatigue come in, the pain, it's like your brain wants to get as far away from it as possible, but there's nowhere to run, right? Because it's an internal issue. But we try to avoid it as much as we can. And one of the biggest ways to kind of illustrate this or describe it is you dread the symptoms. You dread the flare-ups. You try your best to avoid it at all costs. Now, at a very primal level, it's like your brain thinks there's this danger inside, right? It sees the symptoms as severe danger, like the symptoms are gonna kill you. So naturally, like emotionally, we start to spiral when the symptoms come. We think they're coming to basically wipe us out. And we try to escape them, but there's nowhere to escape, right? So it keeps us in this heightened state of fight or flight, right? Hypervigilant. We're looking out for this danger, but we're not looking out in the environment, we're looking within. That is the environment, right? So you feel something on your arm, right? Some burning sensations. You start to get hyperfixated on that. Then you start scanning other parts of your body. Then you start feeling some sensation in your chest. Then you feel your legs really heavy. Then maybe you start getting shortness of breath. Maybe your head starts hurting. Maybe you start shivering and shaking and having tremors. And that can really throw you off if you don't know what's going on. Okay, so symptoms are limiters. You are in a state of fight or flight and you're on edge. So your brain has shifted from a normal state to a survival state. The question is, how do we shift it from survival state back to a normal state, right? And how do we do that in a safe and a sustainable way? Well, I'm gonna show you exactly how. Let's say that this is your brain or your awareness. This is your awareness. Now, inside your brain, there are gonna be very few times initially that you actually feel safe in your own body. You just don't feel safe. You feel like you're at risk, you're in danger, this thing's out to get you, there's nowhere to run, right? But what you want to do, and this is why I always say on this channel, if you've been watching for a while, if you've been following CFS recovery, the golden rule in recovery is responding well to symptoms. It's because when you respond well to symptoms, you neutralize that emotion, right? I'm not saying be happy when the symptoms come or turn it on its head and say, oh, this is great, I love it when the symptoms come. That's not normal, right? I got to that state eventually because I started to recover pretty quickly and I started to see the symptoms as opportunities. But initially, you just want to neutralize that fear, that anxiety, that doubt about recovery, because those are the things that are like pouring fuel on the fire for recovery, right? It's like pouring fuel on the fire for symptom flare-ups, okay? So when you respond well to symptoms, you start to neutralize those emotions and you start to feel a little bit safe. You don't just tell yourself that it's the nervous system. You don't just remind yourself that 100 times a day. You start to believe it, even just a little bit, because that small belief, right? If this entire thing here, the entire brain is operating in danger, right? In fight or flight, in survival mode, there's almost 0% of the day where you're feeling safe. I know for me, the only time I actually felt safe was when I was asleep and I was unconscious at the time. I didn't know what was going on. So I remember waking up and I'd think to myself, why did I wake up? I was dreading waking up because every single second of the day was pain, discomfort, just suffering from the symptoms. There was no second in each day that I felt safe. But once I started to respond well to symptoms and understand what was going on, it really helped me take emotions out of the entire situation. And so if most of your brain is operating in danger, fight or flight, and survival, we want to find an anchor of safety and comfort. It could be as small as this little dot in the middle here, right? You could barely see it. And maybe even just 1% of your brain is operating in this safe mode, right? It's almost like your safe space that you can retreat to when things get tough. For me, that feeling of safety, that place in my mind and my brain was reminding myself, oh, it's just a hypersensitive nervous system. This thing isn't gonna kill me, right? The entire journey with this, I thought this thing was going to kill me because no doctors could figure out what was going on. No tests could explain it. Everything I read online was horrible. It said you're gonna have the CFS for the rest of your life and it's only gonna get worse. It can't get better. And if it does get better, there's like less than 5% success rate, which is complete garbage. Do not believe any of that stuff, right? Or believe it if you want. I personally would not believe it. If I believed it, I wouldn't be here today, able to work out and work full time and, live my best life along with all the thousands of other people we've been able to help recover. So you want to have this safe place over here, right? And maybe it's only for 1 second at a time. Maybe it's 2 seconds, maybe it's 3 seconds at a time, maybe once or twice a day. But it's almost like your body forgets what it feels like to feel safe, to feel even just a little bit normal emotionally and mentally. Because, the longer you've been in this, the longer you've had CFS or long COVID, the more that becomes your identity, that becomes who you are. So you forget what it even feels like to be a normal person, or forget how a normal person even thinks. So when you can start to bring that back, that's where you can build from, right? And it starts very small. It starts like that, because guess what? It's very difficult for your brain to find the spot and then stay there and stick. It's gonna revert back to feeling like it's in danger and fight or flight and survival mode, okay? So what you wanna do is essentially create this reference point, okay? This right here, let's call it RP. This is your reference point of safety. At least it's somewhere for your brain to reference, for you to reference, to get back to. And understand that this feeling of safety, this feeling of calmness and neutral emotions, that's where we want to get to. And that's what responding well to symptoms does. It gets you there, right? Because guess what? Here's what's going to happen. You may find that place, and there's different ways to get there, right? For me, it was responding well to symptoms. For some people, it's meditation. Others, it's box breathing. Others, it's watching their favorite movie or watching a funny comedy show. Anything to get you to that state, get you to that feeling of safety over here. It's almost like your brain is gonna, it's gonna reignite that spark, reignite that memory of what it even feels like to feel neutral, right? We forget what that feels like, okay? But now we have a reference point once you get a little taste of it, right? And now your brain has something to work backwards to, okay? Because you'll feel that, and what's gonna happen is you're gonna revert back to feeling like you're in danger, back to feeling anxious, back to feeling whatever, back to starting to doubt recovery, back to thinking you're crashing, back to thinking you're back to square one, thinking this is never gonna end. But guess what? Each one of these times, you want to neutralize that. And the best way to neutralize it is with logic. You neutralize logic with emotion, because the opposite of emotion is logic. Your brain has a very difficult time operating in both, right? It's either thinking emotionally or logically. So the more logic you add into this, let's say you start feeling symptoms in your chest, right? And granted, again, I say this in every video, this applies as long as you've had your tests and scans done by doctors and they've ruled out all other health issues that you might be dealing with, right? So let's say, my chest is feeling really fluttery, it's weird, I think I'm having a heart attack. Well, logically, what can you do to neutralize that, right? Well, I had about 5 ECGs in the past 6 months. I've had a Holter monitor test. I had an echocardiogram. I've seen a cardiologist. They said my heart is perfectly fine. Well, guess what? You just neutralize that, right? Because logically, how would that happen? How would your deepest fear happen if logically you did all these things? So you reel it back in to this safety place, right? Or maybe down here. I have really bad brain fog. I'm really forgetful. I don't know what's going on. I have poor memory recall. It's working its way out here. You're getting more and more anxious. And let's just say this, the further out you go, the more intense those sensations and that fear. And the further out you get, the more symptoms you will feel. So out here, yeah, you'll feel some symptoms. Here you'll feel even more symptoms. The further away you get from safety, the more symptoms you're gonna feel. So lots of symptoms out here, and it goes all the way around, right? So we wanna reel it back in to this safety place. But the great thing is, over time, as the path to getting to that safety place is carved out more and more in your brain, and this is the beauty of neuroplasticity, right? You start to carve out these patterns in your brain, these neural pathways. The thing is, your brain has the ability to feel safe. It can do it. It knows how to run down the street. It knows how to exercise. It knows how to function like a normal person. It has the ability to do that, but it forgot how to access those areas. So all we're doing is we're accessing these different areas of the brain, right? And over time, let me clean this up a little bit. Over time, that place of safety gets bigger and bigger and bigger until this takes over and you just feel safe no matter what. And you are no longer living in danger or fight or flight or survival, but you have now shifted into thriving. I hope that makes sense. The most important thing here is creating that reference point in your brain of what safety feels like. That's what brain retraining is. We're trying to access those areas of your brain that do exist. They do exist in your brain. It's not like it just disappeared. It's kind of like a computer software, right? And let me do another analogy here, because this is really going to make some sense, okay? So let's say your brain is like a software, because that's kind of what it's like. It's like a supercomputer. There's things stored in different areas, and different things are meant for different actions or feelings, right? Maybe there's a folder or a place somewhere in your brain that knows how to, let's just say, exercise, okay? And there's a place in your brain that knows how to socialize and be in social environments with people talking and processing all this information, remembering people's names, what they've done, the experiences you guys have had, without crashing. So there's a place in your brain. It's storing it somewhere. There's a folder that knows how to do this without crashing. It knows how to exercise without crashing. It knows how to tolerate food without crashing or having severe flare-ups. It knows how to be emotionally resilient without crashing, right? If you think about these like folders in your brain, right? And within these, there's subfolders, right? So many different subfolders, okay? Like literally hundreds and hundreds. So basically, your brain just, if this is your brain over here, this is all within your brain, it just has trouble accessing these folders. That's it. There's some kind of glitch where your brain tries to access this folder over here, tries to perform these actions. Exercise, that can be as simple as walking down the street. That could be as simple as showering, as simple as sitting up in bed or going to the gym, depending on what level you're at. But it has the ability to do these things. It's just locked away. Your brain just, it doesn't have the ability to do that without flaring up, right? There's some kind of glitch in the system where when your brain tries to do these things, instead of feeling normal and, exercise actually feeling good, the way the glitch is working is immediately everything reroutes to survival mode. Okay, survival mode or fight or flight mode. Even socializing, right? You might try socializing or talking on the phone or having friends over, and that might be too stimulating for you. So there's some kind of block here immediately. That stimulus, your brain perceives it as danger, so it goes into survival mode. Survival mode leads to symptoms. Survival mode leads to symptoms, which are basically limiters for your body, right? Because any kind of stimulation, it triggers survival mode, right? Emotional things like watching movies, right? It can trigger you going into a survival state because it's too much. Your brain's like, oh, I can't handle this. Like the computer's gonna explode, so we need to stop it from doing these things. So it will do anything it can to stop you from doing these things, right? But I hope this makes some sense. Basically, the ultimate thing to remember here is you want to try finding that reference point in your brain for what safety even feels like. It's kind of like a breath of fresh air for your nervous system and your brain, because I'm sure if you've had this for quite a while and you've been stuck, you probably feel frustrated. You probably feel like you've tried every single thing. The frustration's only building up over time. You might start losing hope because nothing seems to be working. So you forgot what it even feels like to be safe or to even feel normal. But all we need to do is feel what that feels like for 1 second. That's where it starts. And that 1 second becomes 2 seconds, 4, 8, 16, 32, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, 6 hours. And before you know it, throughout the entire day, you feel safe in your body. And when you start to get the ball rolling on this, your brain starts to realize, oh, I don't need to put all these limiters in place. It's not that dangerous out there. My life is not at risk. So I don't have to stop this person, this individual, which is you, from doing all these different activities. So I can start getting rid of the limiters. I can allow this person to live their life. And once you start to get the ball rolling on this, I've seen it happen so many times. You can unlock a life of thriving health, right? No matter how bad you are. Because I was once hospitalized. I learned these things and implemented them, and over time, my life just got better and better and better and better. And it wasn't a straight line up, right? There were speed bumps along the way, but if you keep things simple and you follow what's worked for so many people all around the world, then there's no reason you shouldn't get better, as long as your tests and scans have shown that nothing is really causing this that's detectable by the medical system. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope it makes things a bit clearer. I drew a lot of stuff on the board. The biggest thing to take away, like I said, was being able to create that reference point of safety in your brain. And it only starts with 1 second of feeling that in the day, because now you know what to work towards, okay? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below what the biggest takeaway was. And always remember that you are a thriver and you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. I'll see you guys in the next video.
I'd say that CFS recovery is absolutely the real deal.
I actually felt like somebody had an answer, like somebody explained what was